Hello, everyone. This is Hind Liepman-San, and I am the Executive Director at the Middle East Solar Industry Association. I wish to welcome everyone today. Thank you so much for joining us on this webinar. I am going to give the start a couple of minutes to allow for more participants to join in. So I will return in just a minute. Hello again. So once again, I'd like to thank you for joining us today. It's wonderful to have everyone here with us. So the first announcement I'm going to make is unfortunately one of the speaker, Jessica Obeid, was not able to join us. However, today on the panel, you are going to be meeting and getting a chance to hear from Mr. Ahmed Tabaqchali, who's a non-resident senior fellow at Atlantic Council and RAC Initiative. Mr. Ali Shams from Array Technologies, who's also a Middle East Solar Industry Association member and Business Development Director. Dr. Mustafa Ibrahim Salim, who is joining us, who is a renewable energy lecturer and project manager at Ali Rakia University, Global Tech, DNB Waste Consultancy, and Pine Zone Consultancy, who graciously agreed to join us a little bit last minute and was some fantastic inputs for all of you. And last but not least, Mr. Joe Steveni, who is an analyst at Solar PV and BESS at S&P Global. I am your host for today. My name is Hind Liepman-San. I'm the executive director, and I am very happy to have you here. The Middle East Solar Industry Association is the oldest solar-based association. We are in Dubai, and we organize a lot of events and webinars such as this one. And I look forward to seeing you in the next one as well. So let's start this for today. Mr. Joe Steveni, I will hand you the floor.
Thank you, Hind. Thank you. Yeah, very glad to be moderating this today. I can tell you straight away, I'll be learning a lot about the Iraq solar market, one of the most exciting solar markets in the world right now from an analyst perspective. I think firstly, definitely one of the key things to say straight away. I'll start by addressing the conflict, obviously, in the Middle East right now. It would be impossible to go on without sort of, yeah, saying this first, really. But yeah, some of you would have noticed that this webinar has been delayed. There's been speakers drop out, speakers come in, a change in moderator to myself today due to it. So yeah, there have been a few big changes, and to some extent, there is a little bit of a last minute nature to this webinar. But the panelists, with their wealth of experience have pulled together very well, and hopefully we'll be able to get some real insight today. So there is a sort of binary nature to this, a sort of almost before and after nature to some of these questions. But I think we could have tried to go down one route and sort of try and siphon off questions in a certain way. But I think what we're just going to try and do is just let panelists. I think the right answer, obviously, really is just to let panelists be open and free to kind of speak and address it where they think is appropriate. There'll be some questions where it's very important to address it, and there'll be some questions probably nearer the end where it's slightly less important to address it. So yeah, Iraq, obviously a very complicated history, but a fascinating opportunity for solar. For me and my role as a Middle East analyst, I'm getting a lot of clients asking me about Iraq. After Pakistan saw an unprecedented growth really in 2024 and 2025, which took a lot of analysts by surprise, to about 18 gigawatts DC in terms of sort of import shipments. Many suppliers nowadays are looking for the new markets or the new Pakistans in that regard, or collections of markets which will make up the new Pakistan, if you like. And between 2024 and 2025, Iraq saw a 400% increase in module shipments to around 2 gigawatts DC. And that places it really as one of the fastest growing markets above a certain size, not just in the region, but globally. So it's firmly in that kind of conversation of where is the next, colossal growth market, or collection of growth markets. We've got, obviously some generous soft loan programs on paper, and big international developers and suppliers coming in to build some large utility scale projects as well. We've got Kabbalah solar farm in quite advanced stages. Total are obviously involved in a big solar project down in Basra, and Power China as well are also involved in another gigawatt scale solar farm. And there are various others as well. I won't go through the entire pipeline. But yeah, as Hind highlighted, we've got a great panel here today who should be able to get into the weeds and explain the good, the bad, and the ugly, as it were. So to start with, I'm going to go to someone with a wealth of experience. I'm going to ask some very open-ended questions about political context, and kind of explain. I'm going to try and ask Ahmed to explain the big picture to us. So maybe Ahmed, just to start, how would you characterize Iraq's current political and economic trajectory?
Okay, well, first of all, good morning all, and thank you for the invite and for the introduction and so forth. Joe, I think what you started with earlier, when the first thing is when you said talking of conflict, I think it's far from conflict. It's war, kind of speak, what we're having right now, and the changes it has on everything. I think the relevance to your question is really one should sort of take into account what the war is doing right now to all the region. I'm not going to talk about the politics or the stuff, but what it means for energy general, for power and energy in general, and where does solar fit in that. I think one of the things that we discovered is how important, if anybody is watching anything to do with the world, how important it is, for example, to understand solar within the broader context of power. So, for instance, as you all know, that most of crude and crude products and other material that are output of refining crude have disrupted the whole world. So semiconductors that need sulfur, which comes in from refining, and sulfur are going to be affected. They need helium from gas production. All of that affects the development of whatever is used in solar, what have you. So the whole thing is connected. And I think this is really what takes me back to Iraq's energy. Sorry, forgive me. I keep on saying energy, but actually it's power. The war has, as you can imagine, sort of like added quite a few other sort of things to our words. But to look at Iraq's power conundrum, solar is a very important component of it, but there is no way to understand the development in solar or where it goes or what we need to do in solar without a general context of where we are in our own power conundrum. And you mentioned, for example, earlier that Total has a giant solar sort of project in Basra, but that is only part of their integrated project, and that's part of the thing. I mean, that part was only made possible because of the other part of the work, i.e., the integrated aspect of the project, i.e., basically the oil production is what will finance all of these developments, and that tells you again and again and again how interconnected the whole sort of power spectrum is. So let me give you, by the way, a sort of a general outlook on what Iraq's power conundrum is in a way, covering. I won't go too long and won't bore everybody to death, but I want to go over that because I have to jump off after that, given things are developing almost on a minute by minute basis. So basically, look, the biggest thing we have in our power conundrum is we only hear about what Iraq has to do in terms of power generation whenever there is a renewal of the US waivers on us importing Iranian gas. And then people come into what does Iraq need to do? How do we close the gap? The issue with us, with Iraq, is not so much that we have a gap and a large gap between power generation and between demand. What we have is met demand, but we don't know really what is the ultimate demand. That gap, everything that we have addressed when it comes to solar or any other thing is about closing the current gap. The issue that we all miss is that it is not the current gap, it's the gap that is growing and keeps on growing because we as a country are emerging from decades of conflict. We've had, until this past few years, we've had almost like 4.5 decades of conflict in which our whole infrastructure was destroyed. But one of the things that it was held back is our consumption. So if you look at consumption per capita, we are now back to where we were in 95 in Iraq. Wow. And we are less, obviously these figures look at what was consumed. So you're looking at general figures, and like all data figures that we keep on continuously revised. But if you look at our consumption, if we were to consume the same as our neighbors, let's say, and we have different kind of neighbors. We have Iran, which is different consumption pattern. We have the Gulf, different consumption pattern. We have others. We are less than half of what everybody else is consuming. And if you look at, let's say, at Iran, our consumption per capita is about less than, I think, a third, if memory serves me correctly, or thereabout. So the gap, not only is it large and growing, but in fact, if we do catch up with normal consumption pattern, that gap is going to be even bigger and larger to fill. And as somebody like, as you can imagine, our consumption is affected by what's available as well. So the thing is to address it, to look for solar's role, is to understand where are our shortages. Our shortages start with generation. All the focus is on generating power, i.e., whichever aspect we're looking at it. But we have our installed capacity can meet our demand or meet demand as to right now, but the inefficiencies of the grid, of the distribution as well as transmission network makes that gap even less. So we end up by wasting something like 60% of the power generated. And you can imagine. So the actual gap is larger than the named capacity. So named capacity meets current demand, or we think it meets current demand, right? Named capacity is about 30 gigawatts. We think it meets demand, but obviously it might be larger. But if you look at the actual generated capacity, it's substantially less. And what is lost in transmission and distribution is even more. So the point I'm trying to make is that we need a multifaceted approach to addressing our gap. That we should not be thinking solar only, or gas only, or electricity only. We will need all of them. We will not have the ability to generate anything without taking everything into account. We have other large issues that we as a country haven't addressed in a way and stopped that. Almost every talk you have about needed investments in gas, or needed investments in solar, or needed investment in that comes to the economics of that process itself. Partly it's driven by our own tariff structure, which basically almost encourages unlimited demand, and also the fiscal sustainability of the current budget spending. The budget right now, the country's budget, spends on power a lot more than what meets the eye. And we get less than 10% of what we spend. So our structure is destined for failure, irrespective of what we do, unless we address that. So I've taken multiple, forgive me, I'll take a few minutes and I'll leave. I've taken multiple parts in various analyses in terms of what do we need to generate, because certainly we need to use our solar power because we have considerable amounts. I'm speaking among experts who know more than I do, but I understand that we can generate considerable amounts of power from solar under the right circumstances, but the economics of it don't work. The economics don't work for the investor, don't work for the consumer, don't work for many other stuff. So we need to adjust all of these as part of an overall strategy that is meaningless without you look at every bit and pieces. Okay. And to say ultimately that we need all of them. You can't just go for one and say this is what will give us. If currently our nameplate capacity is 30 gigawatts and we barely generate 15, 14, 17, whatever it is, and that's an average, not peak. Can you imagine if we consume as much as our neighbors do? How much do we need of each? So I would say basically the whole argument of that. And I think with that, I'll be here for a few minutes if anybody wants anything else, and otherwise I will have to step out. But thank you for that, and I look forward to an interesting sort of discussions. If I don't take part, I will listen to it later on.
Yeah, I just thank you very much for that, Ahmed. Really, really interesting stuff. I was just wondering if you could quickly give a layout. You kind of alluded to it there, but a little bit more detail. The kind of the economics don't work for different parts of the energy system in Iraq. Maybe economics aside, what is investor confidence like in Iraq? If the economics were to change through policy, do you think investment in infrastructure, so the grids, gas facilities, solar facilities, what is investor kind of attitudes to Iraq? What are they like right now?
Almost like the standard or the box standard answer that almost everybody looks at and discusses it. What ails Iraq? Corruption, this, corruption, that, instability, and what have you. I think while all of these are very important stuff, I think most investors, I'm looking at investors who are looking into the actual economy, i.e. invest in power plants or distribution or network or what have you. Most of the investors look at predictability. And predictability can only happen, or not predictability so much as an idea of what are the rules of the place, or how do things work. And without the economics of it, for example, what I mean by that is that if it's not economically possible for someone to invest and generate returns, nobody will invest, no matter what the confidence is in any country. Ultimately, investors would want, okay, I invest this amount. What are my expected returns? What are my risks? What am I looking forward to in the years to come? And that can only be coming in from the structure of the tariff, from the structure of how investments work, and so forth. So the needed thing is we need to figure out the economics of it. And the economics of it is not only the economic, but the finance. Because we as consumers, our behavior and our attitude towards all things depends on how much we pay for these things. For the investor, it depends on input costs and output. So, for example, if the input costs are certainly governed by certain rules and what have you, and output costs like it is right now, then it makes no logic for any investor to come in. So unless we solve these, and i.e. look at really what do investors look for? They always look for a level of predictability, Nobody wants perfection, by the way. Perfection will never be achieved anywhere in the world in terms of what is right in almost everything, but there has to be an overall. So if you invest capital, okay, how much are you going to charge people? What are your returns? How do things work? And any investor would look at Iraq and look at elsewhere. I would argue that Iraq, in terms of the pure fundamentals, is super attractive. Why? A country with 46 million people growing at 2.5%, a country whose infrastructure has been destroyed over these years. How many chances in the world does anybody get take part in rebuilding what was destroyed over the last 4.5 decades and building for the future.
Yeah.
I think the returns can be phenomenal. Of course, people would look at Iraq. They have to. I mean, it'll be absolutely, I think, sort of out of this world if we don't. But we in Iraq have to adjust the economics whereby it makes it attractive economically for any investor to come. And that means addressing every aspect of what we do. So I keep on saying there is no one solution, but there is always a multi-faceted solution that needs to take all the moving parts and try to arrive at somewhere that makes sense.
Yeah. Okay, interesting. Maybe if I could really quickly, if it's okay with you, just stick with you one second.
Sure.
Can I ask you, just zooming out, zooming out a little bit, or maybe zooming in, depending on which way you look at it. How do regional Iraq's regional relationships, obviously right now it's a completely unique situation, right? But maybe, broadly speaking, how does that shape energy strategy, or how has it shaped energy strategy historically? I think that's something that would be really interesting.
By all means, I think almost everybody, when people look at Iraq's power needs, look at our import of Iranian gas, right? And the argument is you need to replace them. You take the American view of based on their conflict with Iran, as opposed to sort of us as the reality. If you look at Iraq, the way it was in 2003, we ultimately need to have gas for our power generation at the time, or using all other stuff is actually wasteful, is expensive, is a waste of resource. However, which of our neighbors can provide us with gas or spare gas? None of our neighbors has enough gas to meet their own needs. And the only neighbor that could do so is Iran. So realistically saying, that's how it shaped it. Not so much as whether Iraq was tilted towards Iran or not. Yes, we had a strong relationship with Iran in the beginning than other countries. But the reality is, at that stage, the only country that could export gas was Iran. And even then it took until 2017 before we got Iranian gas. The only country that had spare electricity was Iran. And that's how shaped our power dynamics. Right now, if we look at the conflict, what it has done to us is, one, it disrupted the flow of Iranian gas. Okay, so that's one element there. We need to replace that fairly quick. But what else has it done? The fact that you've lost part of Qatar's gas production. So, from what I read, is 17% of their capacity for producing gas is gone, and they're called force majeure on their commitments to other countries. That tells you, by the way, that what we did, for example, in terms of building floating gas storage, degasification plants, we can't get feedstock from Qatar, and whatever feedstock other countries can export, i.e. the US and Australia, will be demanded by that 17% loss from Qatar. So that shapes our own search for gas. Other stuff as well. The fact that we've lost oil production. Our production was something like 5 million barrels per day. It's down to about 1.5 million barrels per day. What does that mean? If you look at most of our gas that we use in our plant and our gas generation comes in what's called associated gas, which means come from oil production. So bingo. Not only do we get hurt by not being able to import Iranian gas, our own gas capture will suffer tremendously, which means we have double the hit from low gas. And our future demands, even if the war were to end today and everything goes back to normal, our future demands, which was built on importing a certain amount of LNG, liquid natural gas, is not going to be there. Because already Qatar was capacity constrained in terms of meeting demand. 17% lost, which means everybody else will bid for that, which means we have to fight for a smaller thing. And also, which means the price of that gas is even going to be higher. So the repercussions, what that means, by the way, comes back to the economics of what else we're doing and all of that. So all of these things are factors in how it shapes our policies. I mean, for us, it's almost like, multiple hits on many ways. No amount of anything can substitute. I think that always tells you back how interconnected the whole thing is. No discussion on any aspect can take place without understanding what you're looking at in terms of the other parts of the process.
Yeah, absolutely. No, well, thank you very much for that, Ahmed. That's, yeah, really interesting. And yeah, your answers have kind of set the scene now for us to dive a little bit deeper into to solar. So
Well,
I
with
think,
that,
yeah,
I'll say thank you very much, all, and I wish you the best, because I mean, things are happening pretty quick in these days, and I do have to leave. So thank you very much for that, and I'll be happy to answer those questions later if they come by email or what have you, if anybody has other interest. But thank you all, and I wish you a good seminar, and good luck to my fellow panelists. Take care. Bye bye.
thank you, Ahmed. Yeah, so with that, we'll try and dive a little bit deeper into power demand and market drivers. Maybe could I go to Mustafa now? What is driving solar in Iraq today mainly? Maybe if we could speak quickly at the utility scale first. Are we talking about kind of, well, Ahmed spoke about system-wide unmet demand, but on a kind of, for the people of Iraq, is this a sort of energy security type thing, quality of life? What is driving solar today in Iraq?
Okay, thank you, Joe, and thanks for Mr. Ahmed, and thanks for bringing me to this webinar today. The short answer is all the above. So all you mentioned, it's the need for type of renewable energy, especially solar. Just to give you some figure about what energy demand is like. So based on 2025 figures, the total production from all the sources of electricity was about 28 gigawatts.
Mm-hmm.
The peak demand up to 54 gigawatts. So you can tell it's around 50% is not met yet. That's why the Iraqi Ministry of Electricity asked about 12 gigawatt to be developed until 2030. People and big names already involved there. As you mentioned, Masdar was there, Total Energy is there, a lot of local developers there already. And the projects must, for example, Total projects about 70% now. So hopefully within this year, early next year, that will be in full production. So this 12 gig will generate, according to 2030 plan, where the expected demand would be about 60 gigawatts. 12% would be around 20% of the total demand. This will align with the Paris Agreement protocol or Iraq bit, and that would help decarbonization. But again, this is not the main motivation for Iraq solar. The main motivation is the lack of electricity, especially in the long summertime, where the cooling load is the most bunch of the energy requirement. So this is the figure. I hope that addressed your main question.
Yeah, no, thank you. So yeah, maybe going a little bit into so you spoke about average demand, extreme summer peaks. Maybe we could speak about a little bit more about regulation, sort of policy and regulation. What are the key grid bottlenecks in scaling up solar on a sort of interconnection, dispatch, distribution? How is the grid? How is the grid affected here, and what needs to be addressed?
So if we go to the main three parties of the energy, so the generation, we need a lot. Needs a lot of power generation. Solar would help. Distribution is an issue in Iraq for decades, not for now. That need to be improved, and works are already done by Ministry of Electricity. And the interconnection, that might be a little bit ahead problem, where many solar plants will be started, and we need to make some interconnection between them, when and how much to be produced to the network. This is not the main issue. The distribution is not the main issue, but let's focus on the production. We need a lot of electricity production right now. So I believe within the 5 years that would hopefully be met. The regulation is quite new, and it's learn as you go curve. Thanks to Total Energy, they bring these solar policies into the Iraqi market, and they put the roadmap for the others, for the other developer to follow. Since, let's say,
is that the Basra project you're talking about?
Project. It's called the Sun of Iraq, or Shams al-Iraq, or Shams al-Basra, something like that. So this could be the first utility scale at gigawatts level. Hopefully, Masdar will start this summer. As far as I know, their plan was to start early April this year, but due to the recent conflict, things might slide a bit. But the project is already approved. Talking about this, until now, we have 3 big projects get it consented and approved, paperwork approved, PPA signed. The Total project, 1 gig, Masdar project is 1 gig, and another local firm called Al Bilal Group. It's about 525 megawatts. And we encourage the local companies, such Al Bilal. They started about already installed 20 megawatts within the pipeline, but there are some issues, mainly for financing. I would recommend all the bank to start in Iraq. Like, keep this to the consultant and the bankable consultant to address this. But all the projects come with sovereign guarantees. So, and all the projects came with take or pay PPA. So the risk is not that high in that term. So the other thing, the tariff is keep changing, and I believe you will ask me about the tariff later on. But that's the situation, right? That's the utility.
Yeah, if you could speak about the tariffs, that would be really interesting.
These 3 big contracts signed to about around 40 something, $39 per megawatt hour, 25 years, with take or pay power purchase agreement. This January, this slightly changed. So the tariff would be for utility scale about $43 per megawatt hour until the break even, which is estimated to be 10 years. After that would be $13 per megawatt hour.
Wow. Okay.
So this is still in debate. Nobody signed yet, but this is what the government wants from the new developer. That's the figure. We are still working on that. Return of investment is around 14%. So that needs to be. This is the main challenge right now for main developer.
I think that's really interesting. What I'm going to do, I'm going to quickly turn to Ali now. I'm going to ask Ali a few more questions and details about solar trackers later on, but just there's a bit of a connection here. Ali, you're obviously speaking a lot with EPCs and developers, and you understand the market very well and their sort of problems. What are your conversations like with EPCs and developers right now? How kind of capex driven are they? Are they looking for speed or cost?
So if we look at Iraq in isolation from the Middle East, it's difficult to make a sound judgment because you don't have enough projects to give you an estimate. But obviously, the names that are mentioned that are working in sort of a G2G arrangement, they come from experience from projects in the region in the Middle East, and most of these projects are capex driven. So when it comes to the EPC or the developer, they always look at the capex. Over the years, they have started to have a more sophisticated approach and including other factors like the O&M installation savings, into their final calculation for their LCOE, because they are bringing this from the experience that they have and other installations in the Middle East region and the learnings from these installations. The Middle East region in general, compared to the sort of other regions globally, it's very new, right? And most of the sites are like 4 or 5 years old, so they don't have the full spectrum of what is the actual return of investment, and lots of the assumptions that are made are theoretical. Now, whether this theory will match what is actually happening in the site is a different story. Obviously, Iraq has its own specifics and challenges when it comes to accessibility, to the position of the country. So there are other factors that needs to be considered, other risk factors that needs to be considered when they do the full analysis for the LCOE.
Yeah. Okay. Interesting. I'll go back to Mustafa now, and speak again a little bit about, so bearing in mind what Ali's just said, and I suppose kind of the current war going on, how are these projects viewed in terms of bankability for investors? What are people's views on these projects?
So far, as I mentioned, Total and Masdar bring their own money with them. But for the local firms, still now we need more risk assessment. They need to verify that these projects are viable. We are facing some issue with the finance in terms of who will pay back. There is a policy, there is a severe guarantees for all the developers, but still this is not very well trusted. The solution for this, we bring EPC plus F. So as these utility scale are new in Iraq, there is no EPC companies, local one, to build the projects. So we are seeking EPC from China and Turkey, some of them from Jordan. Most of these EPC company bring the F parts with them. So the credit go to that EPC. How big they are, they could get the bankability. The main factor is take or pay. That's something I believe. And we got a good quotation so far for the interest rate from the banks. It's about 6%, which is okay. We need more time to prove that the solar Iraqi market is stable and it's favorable to many developers to bring it. The main issue is that as it's new in Iraq, the developers want to be developers, EPC, and O&M at the same time. There's no, let's say, distinguish between role of each one. I'm talking about the mainly local companies. These need to be regulated. These need to be separated. But for the wider view, there are many real projects. The solar market is booming. Utility scale is planned to be in every governorate, which is 18. So at least we will have 18 utility scale projects in Iraq within 5 years.
Okay, wow, interesting. Thank you. Finally, I want to ask a series of questions to Ali now about solar trackers. As Hand alluded to, Ali works at Arraytech, global leader in solar tracker manufacturing. And anecdotally, up until about last year, I actually covered the solar tracker market in my analyst role at S&P, and I found it really interesting how it's developed. You know, a couple of years ago, if you'd said we've been seeing hundreds of megawatts or gigawatts of shipments into Iraq, you know, I'm not sure I would have believed you. But yeah, maybe start off nice and simple, Ali. What are solar trackers and why are they important for Iraq?
So in simple terms, I mean, PV modules generate energy the most when they have a perpendicular angle with the sun. So if we look at a fixed tilt configuration, assuming a flat or horizontal installation, then you will have a sort of a bell-shaped energy generation over the day, where the energy generation is maximum during midday. If because the sun would have the sort of a 90 degrees angle with the PV panels. What solar tracker do, they try to widen that the area of that bell-shaped energy profile. So to maximize the energy generation during the day by tracking the sun. So you move the panels to face the sun during the day and maximize the energy generation. They also have algorithms to allow maximize energy generation at diffused light situations where you have a cloudy situation and you need to move the panels towards the best angle to generate energy. Mm-hmm. Now, depending on the irradiance of the area, you can generate 20 to 30% more energy when you compare a fixed tilt to a solar tracker.
Okay, interesting. And can you explain to me some of the sort of difficulties in like the engineering, the construction, the O&M work in the Iraq market, in the Iraq environment?
So obviously, if you compare trackers with fixed tilt, trackers would need a bit more space because in fixed tilt you can put the panels just adjacent to each other. But with trackers, you need the space. If you consider the adjacent configuration, the moment the panels move, they start shading each other. So you don't want this situation to happen because shading will reduce energy generation. So you need to have space between the panels to allow maximum energy generation. So the space is an issue. So if you don't have enough land space for trackers, then you need to evaluate whether a fixed tilt configuration would be better or a tracker would be better. So you need to run the numbers to see the economics. Obviously, you need to consider that with trackers you would need less panels to generate the same sort of energy, but you need more space. The other thing that we see in Iraq, if you go towards the north, where you have a less irradiance compared to the south and west of Iraq, you also may face a mountainous landscape where it could be very difficult to have to install the trackers. Other challenges related to Iraq is security, accessibility has been always an issue in Iraq, and communication. Now, this could pose a challenge if you have a system that requires 24-hour accessibility to service from the OEM, or you need to have continuous spare parts. So systems that are dependent on batteries, for example, or wireless communication, that could be more challenging compared to a more mechanical system.
Yeah. Okay. Interesting. And then we kind of briefly discussed it earlier, but how price sensitive is Iraq in terms purely just of for solar trackers? Is it a market that you'd compare to, other utility scale kind of Middle Eastern markets, Saudi, UAE, or is it a market which is, characteristic wise, is it closer to, maybe like the Indian market specifically for solar trackers?
Yeah, I mean, it could be a wishful thinking, but I hope not. I mean, you have the same players, but the situation in Iraq that you have more G2G deals. So this by itself would reduce the pressure or the competition between developers. So this allows for a more sound decision making in terms of reliability and have a longer term perspective rather than I need to win this project, so I need to be the lowest in price. Obviously, that type of thinking comes at a cost at a later stage in the project because you're increasing your risks. So we need also to segregate the utility scale from the CNI. In the CNI, you'll always have the mix because it's a new market. People will start building their experience. The only thing that I can say is what's important for off-takers and developers is to build a strong specification because that's their only sort of guarding thing that will allow or that will not allow EPCs or suppliers to give them a lower quality just to achieve a short-term win. But I think these are all topics that needs to be openly discussed with the engineers in Iraq, and we're looking forward for these discussions.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah, I'm going to hand back to Hind in a couple of minutes, but I just want to touch on a topic that we haven't actually we haven't quite touched upon yet. I think one of the panelists that unfortunately dropped out was probably able to speak on this best, but maybe if I could quickly go to Mustafa to ask a bit about the soft loan program for distributed solar, and just what kind of the implementation of that. I know it's not your direct area of expertise, but if I could briefly ask you about that and how that's going.
So there is a committee called Renewable Energy Committee related to the Prime Minister office. They've been working about 2 years now for a very promising program, which is we can call the soft loan program. Together with the Central Bank of Iraq, if you are a governmental officer or employee, you can apply for a loan to install residential solar. And for an EPC company for residential, you should be registered within the this higher community. Till now, it's about 85 companies already registered there. So if you are a governmental employee, you can go to the website, select which company you would like, give your details, your house. They should come to your house, to your site visit within a week, give you information. They will declare finish all the paperwork, give the loan, and you as an individual, you will pay the settlement about 7 years. This is last year. I've been witnessing lots of people doing that. This is residential. There's no full awareness about this program, about the viability of solar, residential solar, because it needs to come to backup battery. People starting doing that. this is okay. Going in the good way, people will follow that, and I presume this summer would be a lot more demand on this program.
Mhm.
The second one is for C&I, the same program, but the government will loan you much more, up to $500,000 for your project, and
Okay.
for 10 years. Also going well. The main problem is that the competitor, for residential competitor, as Ali said, we are just still trying to figure out the market, establish the rules for the market, for the connection. You can't, in Iraq right now, you can't export the excessive power to the grid. This is not
Okay.
So you should consume it yourself. Since 2 years now, this program is going very wide and very popular.
Okay, perfect. Well, thank you very much for that. I'm gonna pass over to Hind now, to talk about.
Before passing away, I just want to add something on the utility scale for any potential developer. So the opportunity would be the government will allocate a piece of land, which is about 4 Iraqi dirhams per megawatt. Iraqi dirhams, by the way, is 2,500 square meter. So if you want to develop 100 megawatts, the Iraq government will lease the land by very small margin of the rental, give you a point of connection, and sign a PPA for 25 years. Good opportunities. So it's not something to compete on the opportunity. It's not the lower price will win. No, the high spec, the readiness is the winner case in solar, in the utility scale solar.
Perfect. Thank you very much. I think so. I will. I'll hand the session back to Hind now.
No, just very, very, very quickly here. I just wanted to say we've received 8 or 9 questions from the audience. We have about 6 minutes left to answer them. Some of them are very lengthy. So Joe, have you been looking into, I know you've been obviously interacting with this, but we received quite a few questions from our audience, and I wanted to make sure that we address them. So I'm going to give you 2 minutes to do this while I very quickly just give a little bit of an overview on MESIA, and then we'll move into the Q&A session very shortly. But what I wanted to just tell everyone, because I've seen some questions here asking about where we based and our upcoming events. We have an event that is happening on the 2nd of April. And that is going to be in Dubai. It's about grid forming for anyone who is in the UAE who wants to join us. And we also have a series of events happening and online and offline, including a business breakfast happening on smart cities that is going to be happening in May. And in June, we are looking into a similar kind of webinar event to discuss the status of the market in Egypt. So, and we have also some new content coming up. So for everything having to do with MESIA, please visit our website, www.mesia.com, and sign up to our newsletter so you can receive details about our events and also speaking opportunities for all the experts present with us today. So let's move into the Q&A now. I'll hand the floor back to you, Joe.
Yeah, so question to Mustafa, what is the range of LCOE and CapEx intensity we are expecting for big utility scale PV projects? And then, also to have 12 gigawatt in capacity installed by 2030, we need to have projects announced by 2026. So if, you could give a sense of kind of, project cycles and timeline as well.
So in terms of the CapEx, we are talking about 500K to 600K per megawatt. which is because the development fees in the UK, as you know, Joe, there is a large margin going to development fees. This is a bit less in Iraq, so mainly the main capex is the EPC itself, which is about 500 to 600K. I'm talking about fixed tracker with the basic components. Of course, anything extra would be higher. But to do the math, to do the tariff calculation to the LCI, please take around 500K per megawatt.
Okay, interesting. And then, yeah, maybe if you could speak quickly about like the project cycle timelines, you know, and how realistic some of those targets are, you know, for 2030.
As I mentioned, it's new things in Iraq. So let's take example for Total projects. The development takes about 2 years. The construction is about for one gig. It's around 2 years as well. So let's take about 1 gig projects. The life cycle will take about 5 years to be fully powered to the grid. I believe it's within the range in the region, except for some policies change. So that might, for example, Masdar took about 4 years to finish all the paperwork on the discussion for all the legalization and all the contract. Al Bilal took about 1 year to finalize this paper. I'm working on a couple of projects, took about 2 years to finalize, to sign the PPA. So it's not a technical issue, it's the policy and finishing the requirements to get it approved.
Yeah, okay, thank you. And then if just a few more quick fire questions to Ali that we have time for. Given the price pressure on the solar supply chain in Saudi and UAE, you know, where panel and tracker suppliers are struggling to kind of generate really strong long-term returns. Do we see a similar competitive market in Iraq, or is there more space for supply chain profit? And then kind of following up with that, what is the tracker trend of upcoming utility scale solar PV projects? Is it, you know, attachment rate, fixed tilt, or tracker?
Yeah, I think profit is forbidden word in Middle East, to be honest. So we don't know what this means. But yeah, you're right. The price pressure is too much in the Middle East. What we're trying to do, you know, I'm talking only about array here, is we're trying to evaluate the full value of the system rather than the current value today. Right, and the price range for trackers, we are all on the same boat, a bit higher, a bit lower, but at the end, okay, what's the long-term benefit? And this is some developers, they really positively include all these savings in their assessment. Some doesn't. Same with the CNI. I mean, again, it is yet to understand. My experience in Iraq from other industries like the oil and gas industries, they always understand the value. You know, in general, you know, as a general comment. So I hope that the same mentality, the same culture goes into the solar PV projects. But you know, it's too early to say. It's too early to say.
We have time for, I think, one more question to maybe each of the speakers who have generously given us their time today. The audience is still very involved and asking more. So maybe one more, if you guys are okay with this. Ali, Dr. Mustafa?
I've already started to answer a few questions.
Oh, you have? Oh, you're the best. Thank you. Thank you.
For that. And please let me know if there is any other question. I'm happy.
Right, go ahead, Joe. Thank you.
Sorry, so I'm just trying to scroll up here. Sorry, my computer. Can you see the questions? Would you be able to speak? Is that okay? Sorry.
Yes. So which segment, residential, C&I, or utility, is seeing the fastest solar PV growth right now, and why? To be honest, all of them. Solar became very popular nowadays. As I can see, as Joe mentioned earlier, about 2 gigawatts solar PV shipped to Iraq during the last couple of years. So I would say residential is very popular. C&I, because of the capex, and let's say it's ranked the third one. Utility scale is booming. Everyone want to go the permits and go this project. The next question: are there any new government initiative or policy change affecting solar adoption? I believe yes. The soft loan one is something going to help this transitions. What is the biggest challenge installer face in getting project approved or connect? As I mentioned, you don't have to go to all the process. There is land here already approved. Just get the PPA signed. So, and it's new. We don't have a bank of what's the challenges yet, but I believe it's similar to the region.
Okay, great. Ali, is there a question you want to answer before we check out?
Yeah, I don't see any questions addressed to me, but I see lots of questions related to policies and whether Saudi can sell electricity to Iraq. We are in a very uncertain period of time. So the outcome, honestly, I always like to think positive about what will happen, but the outcome is unpredictable. Things may change dramatically and positive or negative. So we just hope that things will go in the right direction.
Just
Indeed.
on that, we already signed agreement within all the Gulf countries to be connected within their network, also from Jordan, from Iran, from Turkey. So that we are working on that as well, and hopefully all the connection will be completed within 2027.
Is that on ground happening? It's just interesting.
Yes. And I believe that the connection with Saudi Arabia is almost there. With Jordan is almost there. So that Iraq would be part of this network, but still not yet, but ongoing.
Okay.
Great. Thank you so much. These are incredible times, and this was a, I know, challenging webinar, but I think a really good opportunity to do this simply because it's very difficult to answer with any certainty right now about pretty much anything. And I want to thank the audience for joining us today, and obviously the wonderful speakers that were present today with us, including Mr. Ahmed. And Joe, thank you. Wonderful job as a moderator. Thank you to the audience. If you have any further questions for the speakers, you can drop them here or send us an email directly, marketing@mesia.com. If you want to find out information about our organization as well, and find out how you can join us and potentially take part in programs like this one. Thank you so much, everyone. You have a great day.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys. Thank you so much.